Alrighty, welcome on back, folks, to another episode of Tough Love. We are in Tough Talks tonight with Arthur Nix. We are here to get into the paint behind some really nefarious bad actors out there that are heading up a wicked occultish scam that is draining people's life savings and making them look very foolish. But before we get into that, we're going to send you on over to Arthur Nix's page. You can find him over there on the X, which has replaced the Twitters now. We have Arthur Nix at the Arthur Nix. Follow him, add him to your daily regime of time suck intake because, lots of good hot takes there, lots of firebrands, but none of them unwarranted. Also, you can find him over on his YouTube channel, also called The Arthur Nix, where he does an outstanding job of storytelling. And not just storytelling, but stories from real life, stories from the heart, and being able to sort of bridge that ground between himself and you. A lot of it, won't lie, a lot of it is geared towards men and simply just being better all around. A lot of it seems, I guess you could say, sort of lessons in pain, but it is excellent stuff that Arthur provides there. A lot of great info dumps there as well. A lot of
this Dad Says series specifically is I'm the Arthur Nix everywhere, and I apologize for interrupting. But I'm the Nix everywhere except on one Rumble channel where I'm Nix the Fat, which my Gilded channel Gilded server came up with that name.
That's
so funny. I lift every weekday morning, mostly every weekday morning, and when I'm done with my lifting, I sit down in a lawn chair in my shop and have a little conversation. Then I cut that out and put that on the YouTube channel. So
very good. Well, welcome everybody to the stream. If you haven't yet, please smash those like and subscribe buttons. I'll throw up our handles here again. You can find me on the X at Eric Rolon, and you can find Arthur at the Arthur Nix. Also check me out on Rumble as well. Follow that Angel Legend page, and if you like the content that I provide here, then please consider donating to my locals page. Every donator gets exclusive access to PDFs of all of my research papers as soon as I can get them pointed out and uploaded, and your support is greatly appreciated. Tonight's stream is going to be a PG-13 plus, so parents, maybe watch this before you let the little kids tune in. By and large, it's going to be stuff that is needful to hear. You might hear what you might deem coarse language, but I encourage you guys, if you have an issue with a four-letter word here or there, to check through my backlog of podcast episodes and look up the one all about cussing Christians and see what the Bible actually has to say about our speech and the drive behind it. Without further ado, it is great to have you back on the show, man. It has been a while.
Good to be back. Yeah, it's been, let's see.
It's been at least 4 months.
At least 4. Maybe longer. I think I was on your show when I started really coming back to streaming, so probably April or May. But we haven't had a chance to have you on my show yet, although you will be on tomorrow.
I will be, yes, and we're gonna be getting into some. Oh gosh,
that one's gonna be
stuff.
Fun. I watched through that. I sent you the link to that one on X. So if you have the time, you can watch through it ahead of time if you want to, because some of it's funny. If you have a King James Bible, like paper, physical Bible, it might be fun to bring along. Actually, haven't had a physical Bible in a long time, so probably something I should get on.
Yeah, right. Can't change an 1836 copy, can we?
Oh, you have not dug into that topic, but we'll get there tomorrow. We don't want to blow that one out of the water. So,
no.
So yeah, but yeah, it's great to be back. It's always great to talk to you. So
excellent. Same.
To be here.
So the topic of discussion tonight, folks, is, as the title would imply, we're going to be doing some scammer exposing. Now I say, we're going to be doing some exposing, but this is something that Arthur has been on the warpath now for the better part of, I want to say, like a year and a half, 2 years. And this really centers around one of these end of the world Christian, like faux Christian occult scams that more or less it just boils down to, hey, we're going to tell you a bunch of made up nonsense. We're going to heighten the fear. We're going to just pump fear, 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 loosely try and tie something biblical inside here, and in the end, con you out of your hard-earned capital and drain you of your finances. You'll hear the acronym, or I guess it is an acronym, CSRQ, thrown around here tonight. And I'm going to kick it over to you, Arthur. Here, give us sort of a rundown of what first alerted you to this scam that was going on, and then what really made you just dive in on the warpath on this group. Because I watched through a lot of your content covering this topic, and it is insanity to me that people are falling for this here.
So, it actually first came to my attention in July of 2022. I don't remember exactly when. I could probably look that up on YouTube, but I'm not gonna. Basically, I was on Twitter and my buddy Doku retweeted something. This was back when I was streaming with Mitch. And it was a Friday. And I was like, man, we don't really have anything to talk about tonight right now. And then this thing comes across my feed, and it's the first video that they released. I'm like, this is dumb. This seems like a scam. So I responded. I'm like, this is stupid, to the person who had originally tweeted it. Doku liked it. And so I messaged him, or actually I said in the replies, hey, do you want to come on and stream and we'll watch through this video and break it down? And basically, I'm like, I want to get drunk and laugh at some retardation on the internet. Pardon my English.
Like you do.
And so we did. And then Saturday morning comes along, and the people who owned that YouTube channel came into my comment section, and they said, we will reply shortly. Oh, really? So they got my attention. And so I started looking into them a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And I said in the beginning, in that very first stream, like, this feels like a scam to me, but that's my opinion. I have no idea what the real end game is yet, because they hadn't posted the end game yet.
And now, real quick, what would you say the group's name is that have put together this video? You mentioned, I guess, a Twitter handle called We Are Sovereign.
Yes, so We Are Sovereign is the name of the YouTube channel that they have since deleted. They have not deleted their BitChute channel. And that's a convoluted story, that because it's been going on for a year and a half. But basically they deleted their YouTube channel. But it was We Are Sovereign there, and then We Are Sovereign is on Twitter. That's the name, but the handle is actually OM Never Retreat, because they were originally calling themselves the Order of Men. But there's actually an Order of Men like podcast and like alpha male vitality like group that has existed for a long time. Yeah. And I have a whole different thing about the guys who teach you how to be alpha.
Oh, jeez. You have the liminal order. Liminal order. You know what else is alpha?
Probably it pretty much all ends up in that vein. But needless to say, they came in and they started like saying stuff in my comments, and they're like, we're not a scam. And I said, okay, well, let's talk. Do you want to come on and talk about it? No, we don't talk about it. So I started digging. I found their website, and I dug into their website more and more and more. And then I created a Telegram account and found their Telegram groups, and I started digging into those. And the insanity just got worse and worse. And then I decided to just start making videos, and they like just reading through their stuff and reacting to it in real time, like I was doing with just regular news articles. And they started getting really mad about it, because I was just questioning stuff. I said, look, this looks like a scam to me, but don't take my word for it. Just go and read the stuff for yourself. But I said, this is my opinion. And they've like threatened to sue me. Like, okay. I mean, they didn't actually threaten, but it was that one of those, we will take action if we have to.
Sure. So
I actually have a video that says my channel is under attack. They were claiming they were going to start false flagging my channel for harassment. And so obviously, like, it's the meme. My channel's under attack, but it got them to back off. And so I covered it like in real time for quite a long time. I found their pilot page, which was this program let's back up a little bit. They claim that this specific software exists. It is the social credit score software that the cabal is going to use to control everybody. And it's called CSRQ. It stands for Common, Sovereign, Restricted, Quarantined. And those are the classes that everyone has in the software. And you're going to have lots of freedoms removed from you if you're any class besides sovereign. So I couldn't figure out what it was. I thought maybe they were pushing some sort of crypto token, a pump and dump, but then somebody sent me their pilot page, and their pilot page was basically this. Well, first it was Bill's journey into becoming sovereign. So he went through this entire process for the whistleblowers that contacted the Gideon character to make him sovereign in the system, because he was originally restricted, which is terrifying. And he was very, very angry. If you go and read any of their posts, Bill functions as a proxy for the audience. So he is kind of that go-between as a member of the audience. And so everything that Bill says is intended to guide the audience to think a certain way, which is to follow Gideon. Now, I don't think Gideon and Bill actually exist. I think it is two people, which is We Are Sovereign. That's Michael. And then Bill. And I think Bill and Gideon are the same person. But I watched through this process. I'm like, okay, he's laying this out on their website. They've been running a lot of fear in all the posts, and it's always lots and lots of paragraphs of just, this is how terrible it's going to be. The world is going to be absolutely terrible, and no one is going to be okay except for these sovereigns. I'm like, this feels like a sales pitch to me, because I had been watching a lot of like Scammer Payback, and I saw how like you get the Norton antivirus guys to come in and they look and run some basic script on your command prompt and show you a bunch of really innocuous posts that look like alerts. And they're true alerts, but then they twist it. They take truth and twist it to claim that it's a lie. This is actually a really horrible thing, this thing that we have, that we've found, but you now have an infected computer. And so you have to pay us. So it's basically, you're afraid now of an infected computer. So you're in fight or flight mode. And now your computer is about to be destroyed, but you have to pay. So you're in fight or flight mode, and you have a sense of urgency. And so that was what I started noticing, was the tactics, these fear tactics that they were doing in their posts.
Like,
and
you get
then
the text message when it says, "Oh, your Amazon Prime account has been attacked. Here, quick, sign in here so we can verify it's you." I was like, well, you guys found me to let me know. I figure you already have all my information, so why should I even have to sign in here? But
just remember, you can definitely pay your IRS debt with Target gift cards.
For sure. I mean, I thought if people haven't been doing that for the last 5 years, then how have they been paying that debt? Goodness.
Right. Exactly. But then I see this Bill's journey to become sovereign. I'm like, okay, that's it. That's the sell. That's the product. They're preparing you for, okay, Bill was made sovereign. He was specially changed and fixed in the system and saved. So now the audience is going to ask, well, how can I get that? And I pointed that out, and I said, look, it's going to cost you all this money. And they said, well, no, it doesn't cost you this money because you're sending it to your bank account. Eric, let me ask you a question. If I were to make a bank account and tell you, put $100,000 in this bank account, it's your bank account, but I'm the only one who can take money out of it. You can put as much in, but I'm the only one who can take it out of it, but I promise it's yours. Are you going to think that I'm stealing from you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're a smart person. So these scammers actually ran that post with Bill, and then they ran their pilot program. They actually delayed the pilot program because I said, basically, it's going to be, they're going to ask you, they're laying out, this is the price to be made sovereign. And then they laid out in their pilot program that I found on their website. I don't even remember how I did it. And I read it all. Oh yeah, somebody emailed it to me. They took screenshots, and then I was able to find the URL and show it for real. But anyway, they laid out, okay, this is what Bill had to do, and he said, I feel very safe about this. I feel very secure about this, which is basically Bill telling you should feel very safe and secure about this. But we're going to set up these, or the whistleblowers are going to set up these crypto wallets, and that's going to be your USDR wallet. That's the fake currency that they've made up. There is a real USDR coin. It is basically a dollar-tied stable coin made by the EU, I think. You can Google USDR. Whatever you find on Google is the only truth that exists about USDR. Put it that way. And has nothing to do with this thing they're trying to sell. And it's the only true thing they've probably ever said. That it's entirely unrelated.
No, real quick, just as a quick question, are they the ones who have the website set up above top secret? Is that them?
No.
Okay.
But they do link to a lot of above top secret posts.
Okay, because I noticed that they were talking about the social credit system. I mean, like, we know that something is being employed
We
over
already
in
have
China.
we already have a social credit system everywhere in the world. It's called
Yeah.
Facebook. Like
Yeah.
literally, like that is your social credits, and it sucks, but they're tracking you. Google is tracking you. We already have social credit scores. It has not been used to completely curtail our liberties yet, so we still have
Yeah.
time. But
We're not
the,
quite at that episode of Black Mirror yet, where you're having
right,
to tip people a 5-star rating just so you can get into a Starbucks and have a cup of coffee.
yep, yeah, exactly. Like it's not like it already exists. Sorry, it sucks. It really sucks. But that's the way society is. They're not building a software because the software has already been built. And we've been gladly feeding our lives into it for a decade. That 10-year face challenge rule or like trend that people do on Facebook, that's to train facial recognition software. Here's what I looked like 10 years ago. Here's what I look like now. Hey, a straight on photo would be great. So in that's another issue with the scam. Is that they're claiming that all this stuff that already exists doesn't exist yet, but then they're also claiming that the cabal, and I put that in quotes because there is no singular cabal that controls the entire planet. Thank God. There are multiple little cabals that do control large swaths of the planet and are trying to become the one cabal that controls the entire planet. But there is no all-powerful cabal, praise the Lord, that controls all of Earth.
Yeah,
Yet.
not until after the seventh seal is broken there, and we had a long way
Right.
to go before we get to that.
We do. So I exposed their pilot program, and in their pilot program, it said, we're going to set up these wallets for you to get your USDR. And I apologize for shorthand. Please interrupt me because I've been doing this for a year, so I speak in the shorthand. But they'll set up your crypto wallet where you're going to send in your crypto to get USDR. But if you ask for multisig, the whistleblowers, multisig is basically the ability for you to also log in to that wallet. The whistleblowers are much less likely to accept you into the sovereign program because it's too much of a risk. Basically, if you're asking for the ability to potentially get your own money back, they're not going to accept you. Also, if you can't send in a certain amount of money, if you're a poor, they're not going to save you either because it's a scam. They want to get as much money as possible from as many people as they possibly can.
It must be this tall to ride, essentially.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Exactly. And they actually claimed when I published the video that the page was edited with the F12 like inspect element function. First of all, I do not have the technical capabilities to do that. Secondly, I pointed out in that first stream that they used JavaScript to specifically disable that function. I didn't know it was JavaScript at the time, but I said, you can't do like inspect element. You couldn't even copy and paste text from their page. Like it was locked down.
Wow.
So I actually pointed that out that they couldn't do that. But they also claimed that I faked it, but also that someone they had sent that page to betrayed them and that it was a trap to catch agents. Now, an agent they claim it's an agent of the cabal, is literally anyone who questions the orthodoxy of Gideon. And I say questions the orthodoxy because specifically Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, did a video, about a 30-minute video, probably almost 10 years ago now, digging into the psychology of cults. He actually read a couple of books on the subject and basically like abridged those books. And that's what cult behavior is. They want to alienate anyone who would question the orthodoxy, remove them from your life. So if they're questioning Bill, then they're an agent because they clearly don't agree with us, and they must be considered part of the outgroup because people who are vulnerable to cult tactics and cult behavior want to belong to something. They want to be part of the in-group. They didn't actually get spiritualism and like any form of religious anything until I think they realized who exactly was going to bite on the hook. Because as I've watched, I've been reading through in a much shorter time span because they released a lot of posts over the course of about 6 months last year, and then only about 8 over the course of 2023. So really spread out. But I've been watching it as it evolves and reading much closer together. And they kind of evolve their spiritualism specifically based on who is in their groups and talking in their groups at the time. At first, it was very specifically targeted at people afraid of a specific form of intravenous medication. And that was the big fear that they were pushing, more so than the restrictions on money, travel, or any of that. Now their big push is on fear of mind control nanocrystals in the food that are going to make your body have Bluetooth and are going to separate your soul from God and force you to fight in the astral realm after you die against God to try and beat God in a war on Satan's side. That's a lot to take in. Can you explain to me, is the astral realm a thing biblically?
Sure enough is not.
So basically, like, you live here alive and then you die and your soul goes to one of two places, right? It's either heaven or hell, right? That's what I thought. So they claim that in the astral realm, that's where your soul goes. And that's really where you determine whether or not you're going to get into heaven. You have to live an extra life in there or something. I don't know. It's really convoluted.
Yeah, this is what Dante would have referred to as the Purgatorio. Only you've got to go in here. It's a battle royale like Valhalla. Only you don't get to return back to the lodge and eat a giant mutton joint in between getting your head lopped off.
Yeah, and they claim that actually with one of their more recent posts. Well, I say recent. It was February of this year, but I recorded the video on it recently. Said that that these nanocrystals in the food are going to separate you from God, separate your soul from God against your will. That Satan broke a covenant with God, and now God is afraid. Yeah.
You know what's so sinister about this? Because I watched through, like I said, a lot of your videos that were covering this, and I'm actually going to bring up the Rumble page here in just a second, just so I can sort of show some of the folks out there, just what they can expect and what they should actually look into on your page, because you do cover this in pretty serious detail, pretty graphic detail. They've been doing these things which they call info drops or intel drops,
Yeah.
and like you said, it ends up being where you have this guy Gideon who has all the knowledge about this social credit score system that's in place, which we don't even know about, but it's all in place. And they have been able to somehow get into the facility where these people are working on said thing with their cell phones and take pictures of the screens to show
It's a
you.
facility where cell phones aren't allowed inside, by the way. So my guess is they smuggle them in through their prison wallet, even though they get full body scans and X-rays and everything on the inside.
Or they're wearing a contact lens with a camera that somehow has Wi-Fi.
Oh no, they said it's
5G
specifically cell phone photos. They have a special method of sneaking their cell phones in. They said that in one of the posts.
Jesus, it's so cheesy. But okay, so like here's one of the intel drop videos here. Like Arthur said, it's all about fear, but he's got a ton of content on his page that you guys can check out on this topic.
that one with the UFO on it, that one is fun because basically in that one they claim that that particular the thing that people are afraid of, the intravenous medication that people are afraid of, is going to, don't play any of these on here, your YouTube will get banned. And not because you agree with it, just because they say things in there that are against YouTube's rules. Like they say in their videos things that you're not allowed to talk about, and you'll get in trouble for it, even if you're saying that it's hogwash. But they claim that the government is going to come after you with drones the size of bees that are going to inject you. And some of them are equipped with lasers that will vaporize you. Drones the size of bees with lasers that can vaporize you. Do you know how much power it takes to do something like that? They cannot fit it in a thing this size. People were claiming that the Maui fires were started by a directed energy weapon in space. It would take 2 nuclear power plants to power a laser that powerful from freaking space. I don't think a drone this size is going to be able to vaporize you, but they claim this technology exists. One of their more recent posts, they claim that AI is actually demons from the astral realm. I mean, it's absolute insanity because the AI thing, I think, is literally just trying to put arbitrary restrictions on the cult members at this point, because there's no practical value in the truth seeker community to avoid interacting with AI software. I mean, not really. Like the image generation, they say, oh, the image generation is receiving messages from the other side and it's going to hypnotize you and make you addicted to it and worship the AI as your god. And the 5G is going to fry your brain. It just is insane.
I think, like you were talking about the various cabals that are out there. We don't have the singular cabal yet. I mean, if we want to really strike at the heart of it, then we could say that the various groups, like you have the Rosicrucians, you have the Order of 300, you have people like the Skull and Bone Society, that when you get down to the very core of it, they're all, unfortunately, they're all Satan worshiping entities, and like that's the impetus that drives them forward. They're where they push towards. If you read Klaus Schwab's book, he actually wrote for the World Economic Forum, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, where they flat out talk about inside there that they are trying to push for a unification. They're trying to push for a one world system. They're trying to push for a one world currency, and they have all these plans on how they want to make the blockchain a permanent part of everybody's life, but they want it to be under a single cryptocurrency that they can control. And then they're talking about taking things like your house becomes a non-fungible token, which if you go to sell your house, it gets transferred from your digital wallet to their digital wallet now. And that, we have this running total. For those who don't know what the blockchain is, it is essentially a running total online of every single coin that is in existence for whatever crypto that you're a part of, whether it's Bitcoin or it's Dogecoin or anything like that, where you can see exactly where all those coins are, who is in possession of them, and then who it's been transferred to. You don't necessarily have to list exactly what you transferred it for, but it will show that, hey, so-and-so has transferred X number of coins or this coin here. And within the Fourth Industrial Revolution book, they talk a lot about inside there that they are trying to bring about the unification. So like, we're not saying that these things on a macro scale presently don't exist. Like seeing, so the comments were talking about directed energy weapons. Like, yes, we know that they exist, but
they can't shoot through clouds. And you know how I know that? Take a laser, shine it at a lampshade. It's not going to set your wall on fire. It might set the lampshade on fire, or just shine it through steam. It does. Like, light is dispersed by clouds. That I was a lighting technician for 20 years. I know how light works, and it is diffused by clouds. And the ability to fire one from space. When would we have been able to get 2 nuclear power plants in outer space, like specifically? But like the weather modification, sure. Like, yeah, of course they perfected weather modification. That's kind of a well-documented fact. But going back to what you were saying, like the desires of the WEF, that's what makes this scam so insidious, is that they take all these verifiable facts, the things that these groups have said. Yeah. And then they twist it to push their specific lie. The idea that the Great Reset is something that is being pushed towards. I mean, they wrote a freaking article on it. In fact, because I just said that, there's a good chance you're going to get a link to the Wikipedia right down here by the time this video is done processing on YouTube. So you can actually go and read what that was all about. And I'll tell you what, it was scary as hell. And that's the problem. They are claiming that they have an in to save you. They are claiming that the disaster is coming, and they try and tell you that any other personality is an agent or a gatekeeper paid by the cabal. And so any hopium that can be offered by these other truth seekers or alternative media, that's all a lie, that it's all a psyop. And the only thing that can save you is to be made sovereign in this software. They want to remove every possible positive influence from your life, so that the only thing that you have access to is Gideon. and his whistleblowers and their ability to make you sovereign. And all it's going to cost you is everything you own. I actually got contacted about a month after I quit following or quit reporting on them last year by someone who was made sovereign, and they ran out of money because they put in their life savings and borrowed money from their in-laws.
Oh no! How much did they put in?
If I remember correctly, it was about $35,000 total.
Jeez.
This particular individual was able to get all of their money back in actual fiat value. Although it is theorized by one of the other people who was working on the project with me at the time that the scammers may have still profited based on what the exchange rates were at the time. So that person was able to get their money back. But they also had a rescue plan. Basically, if you were too poor for them to consider making you sovereign, they would just hold on to some of your money and transfer it to you after the reset. They got 60 grand out of that.
Jeez.
So, and it's all cashed out too.
And now this isn't the first scam like this that these guys have run either, is it? You made mention in a couple of your videos a thing called Raindrop DAO and then Guardians of the Looking Glass.
Okay,
go into those a little bit.
Okay, so Raindrop DAO was the so I discovered CSRQ, and then when I started digging into Telegram, I discovered another group that was going after the Telegram, the We Are Sovereign Telegram group, very hardcore, and sorry, I'm distracted by the chat. I'm gonna ignore the chat. Nothing personal, guys. I got to stay on topic. Otherwise, I'll see a squirrel and I'll go off and chase it. So this other group basically was saying this actually looks like a similar scam called Raindrop DAO. What Raindrop DAO was a this guy, Dr. Winston Wu, not a real person. I have a few videos on him specifically, or on that scam as well. But they claimed that with their magic quantum computer, they could edit the blockchain in a way that was undetectable. And all you had
outside
to do,
the realms of time, they're able to edit the blockchain.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are these guys doing requesting money then? Why can't they just create their own or pull it from one of the
other people who tried to do it before were always using their own money, and it was all coming from a single source, and so they got caught and the blockchain was fixed. So they needed a bunch of different people to get in and send their money so they could do it. And it was fine because they would give you your money, but you had to promise, because he had more lofty goals than simply making people rich. He wanted to replace all the bought and paid for corrupt politicians with good politicians that would be bought and paid for by the profits, by at least 70% of the profits that you receive. You have to commit to put 70% of your profits towards buying good politicians in your country so we can fix the world's government systems. And that goes back to the gift sales technique, which they teach to a lot of car dealers. But basically, it starts with greed and ego. So they're playing to your greed and then your ego. First, okay, I have the opportunity to get rich from this. But then also a little bit of altruism. Oh, well, I'm going to get rich, but I'm also going to save the world. So I get to feel good about myself. And then a little bit of fear. And then I think it's time. Is the last one. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into gift specifically, but it's basically the sales technique, this sense of urgency. You have to do it quick. Mm-hmm. So they ran that scam, and they used the same kind of language with agents. Their posts had the same style, that was that interview style where one was bold and in quotes, and then the other side was just standard text and not in quotes. So the same styling, same language models. And the Guardians of the Looking Glass were a separate YouTube channel that posted 4 videos talking about Raindrop DAO, and the basically that was related to the Looking Glass technology, which is fiction on its own. Basically, it's this thing that if you connect it to CERN, you can see various timelines of the future and change them and control them, and like weird prophecy nonsense. But that whole Project Looking Glass thing is a completely separate issue. But the Guardians of the Looking Glass came along and said that the Looking Glass data specifically shows that you have to support Dr. Winston Wu. And if he does not get saved from assassination on this date, then all of these bad events are going to happen. And then they listed like 4 prophecies. And I've got videos. I actually have videos on all 7 of the videos that the Guardians put out. But when the Raindrop Dow scam disappeared, they were left as part of the cleanup crew. So the Guardians were the ones who actually emailed all the victims and said, oh, well, the Cabal actually stole the keys to the wallet, so you don't get your money back. The Cabal stole all the money. And then they memory hold everything to the best of their ability. They can't take it off of archive.today or the Wayback Machine, but they deleted as much as they could, including the Guardians removing the 4 videos promoting the Raindrop Dow scam. Their 4th video actually specifically said that there were 70 specific events and all of them had to be prevented. If one was not prevented, then the apocalypse would happen. And I think that's why they had to delete everything, because they came back in their 5th video pushing people towards CSRQ and said that the events they had predicted had not been prevented, even though they had previously said that the assassination of Dr. Wu had been prevented. So that contradicts some of their story. But then also the events that they said needed to be prevented for the world to survive had not been prevented, but there's still hope. And that was guiding people to Gideon, which is the CSRQ scam. And my theory is, and has been, that the Guardians of the Looking Glass were created by these scammers as basically an attempt to have a third party shill promote their scams. Because I think that Raindrop Dow was perpetrated by the same people who did CSRQ. It is also possible that they ran another scam before Raindrop Dow called Sigil DeFi. And I don't have much information about that, but it was basically the same con using quantum computers to edit the blockchain. But Sigil DeFi got shut down, and then they guided everyone to Raindrop Dow.
So more or less, it seems like their scams boil down to, okay, guys, there's this entity out there, the singular entity the world over that hates you and is going to put you into subservience. You are already a part of a social credit system that you don't even realize you're a part of here. Whether you realize it or not, your funds are going to be restricted and possibly are already being restricted. But if you are able to move yourself from your restricted or your common or your quarantined status into a sovereign level, then you can spend your money willy-nilly. You can buy and sell like there's not a problem. So we have the ability to get you into that sovereign class here. Just forward your cash on to us. We'll set up your account for you here, pump you into the sovereign category, and then bada bing, bada bang, there you go. You know, you're on your merry way in life again. Is that more or less what it boils down to?
Yep, pretty much. I mean, yeah, and it's basically a combination between like a Ponzi scheme and a pig butchering scam, which is they're both very similar types of operations with some distinct differences. And that's basically what they've been running.
So nuts to think about, like. And I get it that people, they want to feel like they belong. They want to feel like they're a part of something. But when in some of the videos where you show screenshots of what they claim are somebody's bank statements or what they claim happen to be these CSRQ computer screens where, oh, you're listed as this, and oh, this celebrity is listed at that, and oh, that celebrity's this one here, and this political figure is obviously they're already sovereign. Like very, very easily faked stuff. Very, very easily faked. You could do it in MS Paint if you wanted to.
Yep.
But
I dared them dozens of times to prove that, show me my account in CSRQ. I dared them. They wouldn't do it, which would have been hilarious. They actually fell for fake names more than once. Somebody, the source who sent me the pilot page actually submitted the name Abigail for her family. For her husband. She almost used Frank as her husband's name, but she figured that was a little too on the nose. And the scammers found her fictional husband and her 2 fictional children with 99% confidence that it was the real them in CSRQ.
Okay, so folks, like little quick little PSA here. All right. Let me go ahead and get biblical in the the most real sense of the term here, because like Arthur already touched on, there are nuggets of truth that scammers, especially inside this type of thing, will use in order to then push you using that fear into making that immediate snap decision right now, which inevitably always works its way out to either money, power, or sex.
Mhm.
For a lot of cults, they're content just smashing their six wives and keeping women in total subservience and siring 1,000 children. Other ones, they want you to sign up, they want you to buy their book, they want your money, they want all your secrets, and they want to control you.
Mhm.
Um, like those who started getting into Scientology. It's why you have so many celebrities that they're stuck inside there because they know all their secrets. They know everything about them. They know every single bad thing they've ever done because they had to give all that information up front, and so they're kind of screwed. But the nuggets of truth that they use here when they talk about, oh well, there's this one world government, there's this one world currency, and it's already being rolled out. Well, for those of us who are Christians who have read the good book, we newsflash, we get to glimpse the end before it's already here. We get to know the
Mhm.
end from the beginning. And yes, indeed, in this the time that this earth is still in existence, the whole world will eventually end up under a one government system. Now, specifically, Revelations 13:7, it points out, I'm just going to read it here. This is from the ESV translation. This is the speaking about the beast here. He was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them, and authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. Now, that's in Revelation 13 there. But so much has to occur before a one world government can even take place. We have the
Mhm.
two witnesses in Revelation 11. Those two guys have to show up performing literal miracles, calling fire down from heaven, the ability to enact the plagues that we saw in Egypt back in Exodus, shortly before all the Israelites hightailed it for Canaan. We have to have those two guys then be assassinated, their bodies left in the streets for 3 days. Then God Himself will revive them with His Spirit. He will holler on down to them, come on up here, and they'll ascend up. Like, that's going to be a major televised event there. Everybody's going to be freaking right the F out about that whole thing there. But before that, we have in Revelation 9, we have literally the abyss torn open. We have the locusts pouring out. We have three fireborne plagues that kill 1/3 of all of mankind. There's also a number of plagues and disasters that take place between Revelation 6 and 11. We have all this stuff that has to actually occur before that can even take place, before we can have this unified, singular world government. The whole idea of buying and selling goods under one currency, yes, that is a biblical thing as well. We have in Revelation 13:15 through 18, where in so taking the mark, the beast causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that who no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. That is the name of the beast on the number of its name. Or excuse me, or the number of its name. And all of that, if you fall, I guess, into like the pre-wrath rapture mindset, all of that takes place after the rapture of the church has already occurred. Um,
I don't because it's not in the Bible.
well, I mean, like you've got to
I,
jump back
I
and
I
forth.
throw out a lot of hot takes that I don't necessarily know, so sometimes I just say stuff to piss people off.
It's all right. You've got to go all the way from Zechariah to Joel. You've got to actually get into Paul as well. But we have Zechariah in chapter 14 where he talks about like when the Lord actually goes out and fights those nations that rally up against Jerusalem. When we see him actually standing atop the Mount of Olives and that thing is split right down the middle and we have it moving from east to west. Um, but like the whole idea of um of this taking place before we aren't out of here, it sort of comes up against a brick wall when you follow the breadcrumbs that the Bible actually leaves for people. Like Joel, he actually states at the day of the Lord's wrath, it has to occur after the moon's been turned to blood. And then that gets reiterated later on in Revelation, where it flat out says at the opening of that seventh seal, the moon is then turned into blood. So it gets frustrating to me when Christians get taken for scams like this, where there's that a sense of urgency,
Mhm.
and there's this idea that, oh no, it's happening, it's already happened. I must have missed the first six seals being opened, because that was when we were supposed to have stars crashing into the earth. We were supposed to have a third of all the contents of the sea destroyed. We were supposed to have earthquakes and volcanoes that rend man completely asunder. um we were supposed to have these seven audible trumpet blasts that everybody can hear on earth. All this stuff is supposed to take place, and then we have a promise by Paul in First Thessalonians, where he says, look, God hasn't destined us for wrath, but to obtain salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ, who died for us, so that whether we are awake or asleep, we might live with him. We have this beautiful moment in Revelation 7, where you have the saints who have come through the tribulation. They're now at the white throne of grace, and they're essentially being presented with their new bodies, and they're being welcomed into eternity. And then, like, if we're talking rapture type scenarios, that would be ideally where it would take place, because immediately in Revelation 8 we have the wrath of God being poured out on the earth. And then in the wake of that, in the wake of all that destruction, that's when the beast steps in to take over and rule the world under that one governmental system, under that one currency. So for
Mhm.
these guys to be duping Christians into giving over their hard-earned life savings because, oh no, the social credit system and the one world government's already here and our one currency is already here, it tells me one thing: that those poor Christians are completely unread in the Word of God.
Oh, they
And
they fall into that Mandela effect issue too that we're gonna talk about on my stream tomorrow, where they believe that the Bible has been changed by CERN, and that they believe that the astral realm is a thing. They believe that there are different planes and that there are actually multiple gods, and the God of the Bible is just one of them. They use extra biblical heretical texts like Enoch and the Apocrypha, that are not scripture, and they claim that you can take all of these different things and mix them together, and all of that is truth if it feels like truth. But there's a specific subset of people that fall for this specifically, and it's not necessarily as much of a religious bent as it is. There are people who are conspiracy minded, and correctly so in many circumstances. There are a subset of those who call themselves truth seekers, and some of them actually are truth seekers. There is a very tiny subset of people who call themselves truth seekers who literally will just believe anything that goes against the mainstream narrative, just because the mainstream narrative is always a lie, so anything that counters this must by default be true, instead of using actual discernment to look
mhm,
at, okay, this is a fact, this is not a fact. They judge truth based on the speaker rather than the evidence, and that's
that's
part of the problem.
that no, you're absolutely right there. And how crazy is it that you have so many people that they'll either heed or not heed good information simply based on the letters behind somebody's degree, simply
Yep.
based on whether or not they're an expert in the field. Like, in order to actually present truth, you have to be so careful and so specifically worded with what you say, especially with something like the Word of God, like the Bible. Like, it's
Mhm.
why I use Bible research tools like eSword, where I can actually get inside the hermeneutics. I can get into the Greek. I can get into the Hebrew. I can look up the history. I've got any number of commentaries on there that I've got access to all at the same time. Because if I'm going to
Mhm.
make a claim about it, I'm going to make sure that I have done my due diligence and sought out every single possible loose end that might be there. And it's so staggering. It's so staggering. Just again, that because somebody claims to be an expert, but somebody else is not perceived as an expert, even if the person who's not perceived as the expert is telling the truth, people will so often opt for what the expert says because, oh well, they're officially the expert and you're some layman. Which I guess if we really want to get down to what expertise in any one topic is, scientifically they were scientifically and what's the word, um I guess we'll call autodidactically, anybody who studies a topic, earnestly studies a topic for 1 hour a day for 7 years, at the end of 7 years, you have become an expert on that topic. Whether you have a degree or not in said topic, you become an expert on it. So for a lot of those people out there who read their Bible daily and have been doing so for the last 20 years, I would say you're pretty darn well an expert on the topic of the Bible. But because you don't have the credentials or the doctorate, or you graduated from whatever seminary or theological school, they're still going to listen to TD Jakes over you, or Joel Osteen over you, or Kenneth Copeland over you.
Oh, Joel Osteen.
It drives me crazy, and that's why I stress so much. You'll find even inside the info description below this video, I always throw down the Acts 17:11 challenge, and that's the Berean challenge. That's born of that scripture, and that says, don't listen to anything that Arthur or I tell you as the God's honest truth, unless you've done your own digging to verify what you've indeed heard is so. And that's in all things. That's in reading the scripture. That's in following up on a video presentation and searching out the links that are left below you. Like Loud Earth Crowder Studios, they always include all their links and sources right in the description box below the video, because they say, hey, fact check us, find out if we're telling you the truth, go do your own digging. Don't just take what we say, even though it's very well researched or very well worded, for the truth. And I encourage everybody watching that to do the same. But it requires you to actually look and actually take a look at what you're being told, and not just be like, yep, here's 36,000 of my hard-earned money. Let me borrow some money from my uncle here, and I'll also give that to you because you guys have a crypto wallet and you've showed me a faked screenshot of a supposed bank account, and then me inside some ledger where it says I'm a commoner in this new social credit system.
Yeah, and their proof always boils down to, dude, trust me, bro. And that's really what it is. And I say that so many times because I get so angry, and I have to throw in some levity, but some of my jokes did get a little dark for a while. I got to the point where my wife's like, you got to stop joking about people dying, because it's not funny to anyone but you, and it comes across as mean. And I read through or listened through some of the videos that are scheduled for later this month. I'm like, when I'm making suicide jokes, they don't sound like jokes. They sound like legitimate encouragement. So I actually had to go through and do some hardcore editing. I'm like, this is actually like, I thought it was a joke when I was saying it, but I don't think anyone else is going to take it that way. So I had to cut a lot of that stuff out. It's really disconcerting to me, because I did speak to a victim of Raindrop Dow who had lost $15,000. And this was in the early days of the CSRQ scam. And he had been legitimately suicidal, because it wasn't just that he lost the money. He actually wasn't as concerned about the money. He believed in the cause. He was a true believer. And that's one of the things, if you go back to that cult behavior thing, is once a cult is over, it's next to impossible 99% of the time to get, I mean, I might be wrong about those numbers, but most of the time it's next to impossible to get the members of the cult to ever accept they were actually members of a cult. And so when the Raindrop Dow scam wrapped up and they pulled their exit scam and disappeared, it wasn't just that he lost his life savings. It was that he lost his entire worldview with it. And so he was broken and empty. And that's what I fear more than anything else. When they were doing their rescue plan, I was watching in their one of their Telegram groups, and one guy was like, man, we're almost out of time. I want to put another $1,000 in, but I can't afford to. So I reached out and direct messaged him in Telegram, and I said, look, here is all the evidence I have. Even the stuff that I've hidden behind the paywall. Like, I gave him non-paywalled versions of my proof, and I said, just watch this. Take 30 minutes of time and watch this. I proved that it's a scam. 15 minutes later, I saw his transaction on the blockchain.
Oh my gosh. That's so
and then he said in the group, even if it's not real, I've lost more money.
How does that, like, you just what do you approach buying and selling to the set it on fire approach? Yes, I can set $1,000 on fire and that doesn't affect me, whatever. Like, this is toilet paper to me. That's craziness. Well, okay, just real quick on the topic of like being cajoled into having to use a specific kind of currency. Like here inside the States, there's a number of things that we can use for both trading, buying, and selling. You know, there are some places even up here where I live in North Country where I see the Amish still peddling vegetables, and they'll trade amongst themselves for goods
Mhm.
and or services. Like we still live in a world, in at least inside here in the States, where there isn't just one singular way to pay for anything. Now, I talked biblically about how we eventually will get to that point, and very likely, if you follow all the signs inside the Bible, it's going to be pretty well after the church has been taken off this mortal coil and is now, enjoying their new heavenly bodies and all that comes with that. But that's not to say that individual countries won't try and implement something like that. It's not to say that a state won't try and implement something like that. It's very, very possible that the US could try and implement a single form of currency that's only for use here within the states, and that's the only way that you can buy or sell, period. It's very, very possible. Still doesn't mean that it is on a global scale. It still doesn't mean that it's under a singular cabal. It still doesn't mean that we're already at that end game stage. And regardless of what people feel one way or the other when it comes to using cryptocurrencies or being on the blockchain period or investing or trading futures or how they feel about using fiat money. Whatever your hang up or whatever the allowance that you make inside your own life and what you do with your funds is, um, if you feel like you need to push back on certain measures being taken, then by all means push back. If you have a hang up about using crypto, which I'm not really a fan of cryptocurrency myself, I prefer good cold hard cash. Then all right, if you don't like the idea of your country having to succumb to a singular form of currency, then I guess when that time rolls around, then you and probably millions of others will have to stand up and say, no, we're not going to put up with this. But
Mhm.
even then, that still doesn't indicate that we're under a one party system globally and we're under a one singular form of currency. Again, it goes back to, in order to not be taken by these scams, especially for Christian people who, let's face it, by and large, the Christian community only ever gets their clutch of like 4 or 5 verses from the pulpit every single Sunday. They get 2 fast songs, 1 slow song, we do communion, we're out in time to catch the game. And they don't read in earnest with a sense of a propriety in so much that they want to actually learn and ingest what is there inside the word for them, that because of that, they will fall prey to stuff like this because they don't know spiritually what the timeline is, and they're not, what's the word? Discerning enough to recognize when they're being taken for a ride. Even though, like you said, they're the truth seekers. They want
Mhm.
to believe. They want to believe in
They're not actually
something.
truth seekers. That's the problem. They claim to be truth
They
seekers, but they don't
claim, yeah.
behave like truth seekers. That's the big problem. Another way you can tell that this was a scam is, I mean, I'm sure you remember the couple of at this point, dozen or so fake rapture scams in our lifetime. Um, there was the one guy who wrote a book. He decoded the Bible, and wrote a book, and he predicted the rapture like 4 times. He was wrong every time.
I believe
Um,
Hal Lindsey even tried to predict the rapture
yeah,
as well.
yeah, that might have been the guy I'm thinking of, but it was that this massive like radio ministry company, and he predicted it 4 times, and after the fourth time, he like passed away and like disappeared. But consistent with all those end of the world scams is eventually the scammers are going to come out and they're going to say, stop paying your obligations, give all your money to whether it's this fake church or in this
Yeah.
scammer's case, CSRQ. They said, they started telling people you should be buying USDR, and the Great Reset is coming so soon. They started this scam 18 months ago. They said that it would be online by September of 2022. They said that it would be online and the reset would have happened by January of 2023. And then again by March of 2023. They claim every single prediction that they've made is correct. They only claim that after every previous prediction has been passed and been wrong, but everything we say is right. But they said in a couple of their emails and posts, um, stop paying your debts because all debt's going to be forgiven in the reset. So you're going to own your house anyway. So stop paying your debts anyway. And then you should be borrowing money, taking out loans so you can shovel it all into your USDR acquisition. If you do that, number one, if you claim to be a Christian and you say, I'm going to borrow money that I know I'm not going to pay back, that makes you a liar and a thief. You're literally stealing. And by the way, doing that is literal fraud. You will go to prison. And no, I was retarded and I fell for an internet scam is going to help with a jury. In fact, in most places, those juries are just going to make fun of you and say, yeah, he's definitely guilty because he's a fucking moron. Pardon my language.
Man, it really is staggering. And, like, reason for this presentation tonight, guys, is not to try and just bludgeon people and cudgel you upside the head and make people feel bad about having fallen for this. But in a sense, there has to be a certain modicum of shame that you have to adopt in an understanding of, wow, I have behaved foolishly. I need to cease all of what I'm doing. If anybody out there who's watching this who has fallen prey to this CSRQ scam, stop. Eat the crow, swallow it on down. I know it's a bitter pill to swallow, but swallow it you must, and now do differently. The word to repent means to rethink, and then in lieu of new information, act accordingly. Act upon that new information that you've been presented. Verify the truth of it, and then act accordingly. Act with that new knowledge. Act with wisdom. And I guess the shame tool that is used in that moment where you have to feel that pinprick in the back of your head that says, wow, I really stepped in it now. Don't let that bludgeon you into this world of condemnation, because we know that Christ didn't come to condemn the world, but that through him the world might be saved. Oh, you'll feel convicted for sure, as the Holy Spirit is given to convicting our hearts. So now, okay, what will you do with that conviction? Will you dust yourself off, pull yourself up by the bootstrap and say, okay, I was foolish. I lost a lot of money. Now I need to get down to work to make sure that not just myself, but my posterity is financially secure, and put this very dark episode behind me, because let's face it, you're not getting your money back if you put it in with these scammers. Like it's not coming back. Now I believe you said there was one person that you had talked to that was able to get something back. Did I hear that right on one of your videos?
It was the one sovereign that reached out to me, and they were actually basically my theory is they went after the Bill character very, very early on. And I think they were one of the first people that actually started sending money in. And they're like, I need money right now. Because it was right when Russia was starting to invade like Ukraine. Well, not quite. But there was a lot going on like with escalation in Ukraine at that point. Because this was in October of 22. So Russia had already been in Ukraine. And this person lives in Siberia. And they basically told Bill, like, I can't afford to send any more money in. This was my life savings. And Bill ridiculed the hell out of them. But then started sending the money back. And my guess is the only reason they sent back to this person was because it was very early days and they didn't have enough other people on the hook yet. And so to keep this person quiet, it was more worth it to send the money back. And this person, I don't remember exactly the amount, but I think it was in the amount of $35,000. I actually did the math on my locals page, thearthurnix.locals.com. It's the pinned post. It's $3 a month, because fucking pay me at this point. But that I don't remember the exact math, but I mean, they got $60,000 to $65,000 in their rescue plan. And that's because they were able to continue operating for another 6 months. Another 8 months after the person that reached out to me was able to get their money back. So they were able to get a lot more victims on the hook by keeping this person quiet. And so it benefited them more. And like I said, with the exchange rates, I don't have the wallet that they sent back through. So I can't trace the exchange rates. And I don't know that as well as the original person who put me in touch with that victim. And they had a bunch of other life problems, like getting stabbed and spending the week in ICU, like major issues.
Jeez.
So they're not a source anymore, unfortunately. But that's the person who knew and theorized that the scammers actually profited anyway because of the exchange rates when the money was sent out and sent back. But that's the only victim that was able to get their money back that I know of, and I'm 90% sure that that's as far as it went.
Jeez.
And as of today, and I've been checking, they have actually been inactive on Telegram. The Michael character has been inactive since the 20th. The Bill character has been inactive since the 24th. This is the longest either of them has been inactive on Telegram and Twitter.
Yeah, it's 24th of October.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Michael, and when I was when you were doing going through some of their like info dumps that they had there, I know that the way it always set up was like, hey guys, we're back with another upload. You know, it's just been putting all this hard work together here, and it's always in the form of just a written conversation.
Yeah.
The one couple of videos, it was like this blurry looking head and this super.
Oh yeah, I wanted to mention that, by the
modulated
way.
voice.
The other reason that I think Sigil DeFi might be related beyond just leading into Raindrop DAO is that Sigil DeFi, one of the victims actually was able to download and re-upload one of the videos from the Sigil DeFi scam. And the speech patterns of the person in the Sigil DeFi scam sounded very similar to the Gideon character speaking in that video. I can't verify that. It's a theory. I can't find anything on Sigil DeFi besides what was sent to me by the one victim of that scam. But yeah, that weird blurry video thing, like I could not do that on double speed. We had to watch that in real time. Because the voice distortion is so bad.
Yeah, it's really hard to hear unless you've got your volume like cranked up and you're watching it just at normal speed. But they often reference inside their big long text conversations that very rarely provide any actual. I mean, they never provide any kind of concrete proof or anything, save for their screen caps or the photos they've taken of some computer in some facility that they snuck a cell phone
We
into.
have documents. We might release them someday, and then it comes out, well, no one's believing us, so they wouldn't believe us if we gave any more proof. Or the alt media isn't talking about us, so that's proof that we're right, because we already said that the alt media were made sovereign, and so that because they're not talking about us, that proves that we're right because they're already sovereigns because we said they're sovereign. Basically, it's the same as like a government agency saying we investigated ourselves and found we've done nothing wrong.
Jeez. So the characters like you were mentioning that come up again and again, it's usually a conversation between Gideon and Bill, and then there's always some shout out to this guy named Michael. Thank you for doing the editing and cleaning up our presentation here, which like to me I figure that there's got to be at least two guys working this thing here.
There are two guys, and it's just because the times that they're on Telegram don't match. And early on, they were actually, at least one of them was on for 24 hours a day. So there was some overlap some of the time, and then they had Dark Days with a Z. He was on for a little while as well. So I know that there were at least 3 people at one point, but I think there's only 2 now. It's Michael and Bill.
Gotcha.
But I'm not sure because I can't find anything on these guys, and I want their information. I reached out to Scammer Payback. I reached out to CoffeeZilla. I think all the other hackers that I know of, I don't know how to reach out to. And it's not that I want to dox them. I mean, I do, but I would rather send their information to law enforcement. Because they've stolen so much money. I want them to go to prison, even if I never find out who they really are. If I know for sure that they're in prison for the lives that they've ruined, that's fine. And that's why, like, if you are a victim of this scam, like, I need more intel. I need the emails because some of the emails, the sovereign emails, were provided to me by the person who reached out, but not all of them. Some of the inside information was provided to me, but there is a lot, like their password protected site, that I can't get into. And yeah, they typically use either a 4 or 6 character, typically, I don't know for sure, a 4 or 6 character password that is numbers 0 through 9 in one of those like just it's a numeric password, 4 to 6 digits. If someone had the expertise and knowledge, they could brute force that password. Don't do that. It's a felony. I don't have the expertise or knowledge or the interest in going to prison. But if you're a sovereign, you have that password already. Send it to me.
We have real quick. We have a question here from Tom L. Eric, do you think it's safe to say that we can see the preliminary setup for a one world currency on government? I think it is safe to say that you do in a number of respects. Now, whether you do definitely on paper, like I mentioned, the book that Klaus Schwab wrote for the WEF, as their founder and head person, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. They talk directly inside there about creating this system. They talk directly inside there about the benefits it will provide, about the use of non-fungible tokens, about being on a blockchain where every single thing that you have to buy or sell is accounted for. You can see where all that money is going. Like, we definitely see it on paper. And I would say in some sense there's definitely a preliminary appearance of it in real life as well, in so much as um, we have a warning inside the good book, which is to essentially not. It comes in the form, I believe it says it's not to hurt the wine and not to hurt the wheat crops. I believe, I think it's a phrasing inside Revelation, but it boils down to not allowing inflation and not hurting the currency that you're working with. Because there was a big issue that they had back in the day with people using scales that were purposely off so that they could swindle people inside the marketplace. Now, when you work in a fiat money system like we have here in the States, where we don't even have the actual precious value pound for pound, sorry, the precious metal pound for pound that we would need to actually support the amount of currency that we print, that's a lot of that is being done purposely, because in so driving up an inflation and then banking on some sort of world catastrophe or a series of world catastrophes that make it imperative that we all get on the same page, because dramatic loss of life has taken place, which is that's what happens in Revelation. You have so many serious catastrophes that take place all at the same time and such a huge reduction of the world population that they're like, okay, guys, it's time to all rally together here. Differences aside, we're all getting on one currency now, because that's the way it has to be for us to even entertain being human anymore here and surviving together on this planet. You do see the preliminary thought processes going towards that already, especially if you get into groups like Skull and Bone Society. If you start going down the rabbit hole on the WEF, and you even going back and reading like Malcolm Muggeridge's work, um, it, ideas like this have been in existence for a long time. They have just lacked the ability, the know-how, and then the imminence and the power to make it happen. But
But
I
and
don't
I
say.
would argue that the ability and the science have basically been there since the days that John was alive. I mean, the Roman Empire was the whole world for a long time, so technically they had a one world currency, coins with Caesar's face on it. Um, and my thinking behind that is, we have these signs listed in the Bible, and they can be interpreted to have occurred in concurrence at least twice for every generation since Christ ascended into heaven, because God said that only the Father in heaven knows the time of return. So, of course, he's going to allow the signs to exist on and off, because you're never going to really know when he's going to come back.
Mhm.
That's my theory anyway.
No, I think there's a lot of validity to that. And I guess, sort of just finishing up the last little thought that I had there.
Sorry to
Um,
interrupt.
no, you're good. I say all of that again to say, like, don't let this scare you into doing something rash and falling for one of these scams out there, because these aren't the only people that are doing this. There are
Right.
plenty of other church affiliate groups that bank on that fear. There are plenty of church affiliate groups and Christian organizations that they pump all sorts of weight behind this blab it and grab it, name it and claim it, call in your own harvest, the prosperity gospel, that broken theology that is not a thing. Um, in so many of them, whenever you see them, whether it's televised, you hear them on the radio, you see them on a YouTube channel, they're asking just for money. Oh, send us your money. You know, we're doing the work of the Lord. Send it on down here. Like, okay, if I'm a pastor, I don't need to be walking around wearing some $60,000 watch. Like, if I'm supposed to be um living like a good steward of God's money, then I would hopefully be able to, as Dave Ramsey describes, be living and giving like nobody else, living like nobody else during my poverty days, so I can live like nobody else and give like nobody else inside my days of plenty.
Mm-hmm.
Um, don't don't fall for the scams out there, guys. All right, this idea that there's going to be this immediate global currency right now before those intense events are laid out for us in Revelation, it's not a thing. It's not going to happen. Now, again, like I said before, it doesn't rule out a push that may take place even in our lifetimes here in the States to dispense with any other kind of trade, save for using a certain kind of currency. And if you don't want to be a part of that, then I guess you got to push back against it when that time comes.
Of course, they will then come after you with the military and their drones the size of bees.
They're bee drones with the vaporization lasers. So another couple little things here.
Okay.
What I thought was really interesting is when they're they talked about the social credit score inside one of their little info dumps. They talked about it already being in place in China and how
Mm.
it was being presented here and rolled out here in the States. And I believe they even mentioned the EU
Mhm.
inside there as well. But they talked about if you're they used a number of fear tactics. One of them, they mentioned, oh, everybody's going to be forced to start getting the jab. They didn't say
Mhm.
what the jab is or what said inoculation or vaccination was
They
going to
use that
entail.
particular word as basically just be afraid because there are people who are afraid of that particular kind of medication. I'm not here to talk about that. It is between you and your doctor whether or not
Mhm.
myocarditis is right for you. That being said, um, they use that basically as a fear tactic. And everything boils back to that word to the point where in their scam it basically has no meaning anymore because everything is that at this point. The food, the nanocrystals in the food is what they're claiming is the same thing because they're trying to go back to that particular fear because there's something in the minds of pretty much everybody who's conspiracy minded that particular thing is terrifying. There are reasons for that, and not all of them are incorrect.
Now, here's another one too. You mentioned also in one of the videos you did on them, they talked about it was a railroad strike that was going to take place. That was
Yeah,
essentially going to be the end of society as we know it,
I had
and it
forgotten about that.
never happened.
No, it never happened because Congress was like, yeah, that would destroy the economy. And Congress, interestingly enough, has the authority to tell the railroad workers, yeah, you can't go on strike. Now, the railroad workers could quit. And I heard that there was the possibility at the time because I know a guy who used to work on the railroad. He now works for the government on the other side of that,
Mhm.
um, handling toxic waste
Oh,
or
sweet.
investigating toxic waste train derailments. He is not in the district that was in Ohio. Otherwise, that would have been on his or part of his responsibility. But I had asked him, I was like, what do you make of this? Do you think it's going to happen? He said, no, it's probably not going to happen. These guys, though, they weren't going to walk off the job. Most of them weren't because they're vested hardcore in their retirement. You are exempt if you work for the railroad from Social Security because the railroad pension is the best pension fund in the country. And it's the only government managed pension fund that Congress cannot touch.
Wow.
There are billions of dollars in there because all of the borrowing that they do is literally just looting Social Security. They would love to get their hands on the railroad pension fund, but they can't because it's actually illegal. And every time they try and bring it up for a vote, the railroads come in and say, yeah, we're not going to let you do that. If you try and go after our pension fund, we're going to shut down the supply chain. Um, so like, and it's this massive slush fund because the guys in the railroads, they they run really hard for a really long time, and they invariably die within 3 years of retirement, and they usually retire around 60 years old, roughly invariably, because they just ran so hard and then they're tired and they sleep themselves to death. So they have this retirement fund that's intended to pay them out and like calculated and managed to pay them out until 95, 100 years old. So this massive pension, they have 30 years of money set aside for guys who died 20 years ago.
Jeez.
So it's just this massive overflow of money that Congress wants to get their hands on. So the railroad, like they do have a lot of control, but Congress also has a lot of control to say, yeah, you're not allowed to go on strike. Kind of like the Air Traffic Controllers Union. It's something that Congress intervened in, the president intervened in. And I knew when they said that, oh, hey, I actually know someone who worked for the railroad. So I talked to him on the phone. And then I learned that, yeah, this is not going to be an issue at all. And so it's just another one of their many predictions that they are inevitably going to get wrong.
Wow. Okay, so back on just briefly onto the idea of somebody making a prediction, said prediction failing, and then still having an audience that they can make another prediction that also fails, and then still having an audience afterwards to whom they can make another prediction that also fails. For those of you who aren't too read in the Bible, anytime in the Old Testament, if a prophet said something was going to take place and it did not take place at the appointed time that that prophet claimed it was going to take place, they were to be stoned to death. God was not to be mocked in that, and he expected the entire community to recognize, hey, they lied and they're supposed to serve as this mouthpiece for God. They've essentially carried the Lord's name in vain, serving as his mouthpiece. They are to be stoned to death.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the Christian community now, number of ministers out there, number of prophets out there that have made predictions, have made prophecies about things that have not taken place. Now, we're not running right on out and stoning them to death,
Right.
because thanks to Romans 6, we do know that grace doth exist for us. So we must already consider ourselves dead, because he who is dead is free from sin. That being said, though, the social death that has to take place because of those who do make those predictions, that needs to carry out through a lifetime. Doesn't mean that you take every opportunity to denigrate said person for having failed in a prediction, whether they truly believed or they were just trying to get you to donate money to whatever fund that they had going at the time, or pour into whatever church project they had at the time. You know, that almost becomes an irrelevancy to the fact that people don't get a second chance to make a prediction. Now, if you're a minister, unfortunately, unless you're straight reading the Bible word for word and somebody is listening to you, anything you say from that point on has to be very harshly scrutinized. And I would encourage people to really pay no more heed to a person who has made a prediction that has failed, because according to the good book, they should have been killed for that anyway. So they may as well not exist, especially inside your worldview. And they definitely should not have a say in your spiritual well-being at all, unless, again, they're reading directly from the Word of God verbatim, not throwing their own 2 cents or their feelings about it. Now, we look at this group here that are behind this CSRQ scam. These guys, Bill, Michael, and Gideon, who have failed several times in predictions, but yet they still continue to garner support and money for the nefarious efforts. Now, Christians out there, anybody who is a part of that Telegram group, who is watching this video right now, or who has given money to these guys and notes that they have failed in their prediction, don't be suckered into this idea that somehow CERN has altered the timelines, and because they can see it through their quantum computing devices, or they're able to glimpse it through this looking glass, that, oh, well, we saw that eventuality coming and that's why the prediction failed. Do not assume that that is a thing. Do not believe that is a thing. They filled in a prediction. Okay. So that means, all right, I don't trust you anymore from here on out. In fact, I'm getting the hell away from you, and I'm not having anything to do with you anymore. That's how stark it has to be. There
Mhm.
is no second chance. There was no second chance for a prophet in the good book. There's no second chance for a prophet here in today's day and age. And there certainly isn't a second chance for a person who's making false claims to hustle you out of your money, who's already failed multiple times on top of that to show dollars to donuts that what they're saying is in fact true. Stop being fooled, stop being misled, and do your own diligence, arm yourself with knowledge, and get out. Get out while you can with what you have, and don't expect to see any money that you've poured into a scam come back to you. Don't expect it.
Right?
Acknowledge that what you did was foolish and don't do it again. And also, don't let your family do it. Don't borrow money to do it. Do your best to get the word out. Shout it from the rooftops if you have to. The only way that the terrorists win is if the good guys do nothing.
Yeah. I the one thing that makes me feel good about what I'm doing is when I can reach out to people um who come back to me and basically say thanks for giving this to me and giving me this information. Um it helped me stop being afraid. Not just that it saved them from the scam, because I didn't save anybody from anything. I was just they're stuck in this cycle of fear in this cult. And they're living in fight or flight mode for a long time. Your body's not, your brain and body are not meant to have fight or flight mode on all the time. The adrenal overload is super bad for you. It's not good for you. Stress literally kills. There are physical effects to stress on the human body. And
On the heart.
yeah. And these people, like they finally, like I'm able to get in touch with some of them and say, look here, this is what I've proven. It's a scam. And they're like, oh my gosh, I don't have to be afraid anymore. You're right. You don't have to be afraid anymore. So, I mean, that's unfortunately the best solace I can get is that I'm exposing them. And I wanted to be done with this a long time ago. Like, they threatened to dox me. They called me a pedophile because there was a guy in a Telegram group where I was advertising my videos who was not active in the group that was a legitimate pedophile and terrible person. Because he's a pedophile. That's what makes him a terrible person. And I will not back down on that.
Nor should you.
And they claimed that because I was in this group advertising my videos, because I'm running a freaking business, they basically claimed that he was my source and that he was the leader of the group. He was not the leader of the group. He was the boyfriend of the leader of the group, and she was a nut job as well. And they weren't my sources. My sources were individuals who reached out to me directly. I was in that group to advertise my videos. And they're like, oh, well, this pedophile was the leader of the group. He wasn't. The second in command stood up for him. She was the leader. And yes, she did. So if you believed these videos from this guy who we're not going to name while they show screenshots of my Telegram conversations, then you sided with a pedophile. And they said that while one of their moderators in their Telegram groups was not just a pedophile like this guy was. He was a convicted pedophile in the state of Missouri on probation, in violation of his probation, simply for having access to the internet.
Holy cow.
So they claim that anybody who believed me sided with a pedophile. Well, that logic goes both ways, Gideon. So anybody who believed you because you stood up for a pedophile managing and moderating your groups also sided with a pedophile. It goes back to truth is about the truth, not the speaker. Dr. Mengele, if you don't know who he is, Google that in your own time, said correctly that smoking is not good for you. He was a Nazi. You don't just dismiss something just because the speaker was a terrible person. Also, by the
Oh,
way, the stuff that Dr. Mengele did, like we took all of his notes. And like most of medical schools nowadays were because of the work that he did. So yeah, like everybody in the world literally benefits from the work that was done by that man. What I say work, the absolute horrors that he did to people, the atrocities that he performed on people, that we use them now to save people's lives.
man.
So the world is a very messed up place.
Mhm. Yeah, good Lord's black and white, and boy, there's a lot of lovely shades of gray down here on Earth.
No, it was not
Um,
Karlin Boroshenko, Scott Allman. It was not. It was not Karlin.
Cat Kerr, Troy Black.
No, it was someone named Carol. I forget the last name, and I don't care, and I don't remember the name of the other guy. But I do know that the guy who was the pedophile in the group that was their moderator was named Matthew. And actually, I have his prison record somewhere in Telegram as well. His mugshot, his sentencing, all of that. I'm not going to go into that because I'm not going to dox a guy on the internet. He's probably back in prison now. The guy who fed me that information, he was a nut job. But that was all drama back then, and that's why. Like, I didn't know. I walked away because they threatened to dox me. And like, I don't know if they have my docs. Now I know they don't. So that's why I'm reporting on it again. And I waited from when my source, the Sovereign, came to me. I waited until they had all of their money back because I knew if I exposed those wallets early and Bill caught wind of it, they wouldn't get their money back. So
Yeah, they would have
6
stopped.
months. Yeah, I waited 6
Wow.
months to expose that.
Now the person got like essentially all 35,000 back.
From what I understand, yeah, it was pretty much everything.
Holy cow!
And that's the fiat value, like I said. So based on what XRP was at the time, and that's a lot of money when you live in Siberia, because it's just the cost of living there is very different than here. But even like that's a lot of money here too. Like I don't have 35 grand to throw to a scammer.
No, for most retail positions, supervisors start around 30K for the year. Like that's somebody's year's salary right there.
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay, so another couple of things that you mentioned in a couple of your videos, you were talking about that you were able to archive a lot of this information before it got shut down, and you thanked somebody. You said, I pulled it off their site before it got pulled down. You know who you are. Great job.
Oh yeah. Okay. So one of the guys who was one of my sources wrote a cease and desist letter because he's in Canada, and that's basically how that works. The hosting site for oculumlabs.com was in Vietnam. Don't visit oculumlabs.com. I get all sorts of warning lights when I visit that site that says this is very malicious. So they got their domain back. But the hosting site was actually in Vietnam. And he basically sent a cease and desist. He showed all of the posts from their website and said, this looks like a scam. And I'm pretty sure the Vietnamese government was like, or this Vietnamese company was like, yeah, we don't need Interpol on us. We're just going to dump it just in case. That's what I think happened. Although I might actually still have a copy of that cease and desist and their response somewhere. I don't know. I've deleted a lot of emails, some of which were actually important related to this scam, like the person who sent me the access to their rescue plan. And you know who you are. Reach out again if you still have any contact with Bill, because I had some good laughs with that particular individual. So that guy got the site shut down. And they claimed it was the cabal, and they claimed that it was a hacker. He's not a hacker. He's like a sysadmin for some company in Canada, and he does like some web design, like freelance web design, and that's about it. And he literally just sent an email, and I think that because they initially claimed that it was a hacker who took it down, but then they started talking about the cease and desist because we started posting that everywhere. And so they take those little elements of truth, like there was a pedophile in the group, and twist it to say that he was the leader of the group. and they said that he was a hacker because this one guy has a little bit of knowledge of computers. And then they had to pivot back to the cease and desist because there was just too much proof out there that it was actually a cease and desist that took it down. I didn't get involved in any of that stuff because I didn't want like the legal ramifications. I'm approaching it as a journalist, I'm trying to expose them, not trying to like physically attack them and take them down. And I told him every step of the way, I'm like, I don't know if this is legal. I'm telling you, like, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not your lawyer. Like, just you probably shouldn't do lightly. This, but yeah, like be freaking careful.
Yeah.
So
gosh. Okay, so you mentioned that they likely got their domain back. As far as you know, up until the 24th, they've been active on their locals page, still running this scam.
Telegram.
Telegram. They've been running this scam on Telegram.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, you don't think that they're U.S. citizens, do you?
No. It's possible. Gideon's accent is an American accent. It's not Canadian. It's possible that he's a U.S. citizen, but lives overseas. And I think Bill and Gideon are the same person, by the way. But I think he lives in Vietnam or somewhere in Asia, just based on time zones, the way the time zones are and the timestamps that I have in the emails that I've gotten back and forth from sources that have connected with him directly. I think he's based out of Asia, so would be an expat.
Okay. Well, and you actually brought up a great point there, them being the same person. Like they reference Gideon, Bill, and Michael inside every single one of these little information dumps that they do, which like nobody has any way of verifying. It's probably just one dude sitting alone, like writing and then talking back to himself, because the way the responses are from Bill, they're very much like a Mary Sue character, like, wow, gee, that sounds intense. What about this other thing here that we didn't think about? And then Gideon's, oh, let me placate you here for a second. Don't you worry, baby bird. I'm going to feed you. Oh, boy, gee, thanks a whole lot, Gideon. Wait, but I'm sure people are going to have questions about this. It's this almost sing-songy back and forth, and then they always tip the hat to Michael. I have to imagine that there's like one dude with a couple of different phones where he's got several accounts open up on a computer screen and just firing off questions and responses to himself inside.
Yeah, it's probably literally just typing it on a page, like on a blog.
I was gonna say inside the oh gosh, I keep wanting to say locals. It's not locals. It is
well, now it's justpaste.it is where they put their intel drops.
Justpaste.it.
Yeah, it's basically a free posting site. I think they paid for Medium with Raindrop DAO and didn't want to deal with that this time. And to try and separate the methodologies that they use for different scams, even though it looks very similar. It's interesting, though, because Gideon claims to be a cybersecurity expert who used to be in the intelligence community and gives basic tips on how to be completely anonymous online. Oh my God. That is entirely impossible. I saw a video today, actually. YouTube suggested it in the algorithm, and this guy is called Occupy the Web. That's his pseudonym, and he is as anonymous as possible. He is as anonymous as you can be online, and he has said the NSA has sent him physical mail to tell him he knows, or they know who he is. He says there is no way at all. It is entirely impossible to be completely anonymous online if someone is motivated to find you. And Gideon claims that the cabal is just not motivated to find him. And they go back and forth as far as whether or not the cabal knows his real name, except that they had a couple of posts, and I recorded the videos for that recently. They'll be going up sometime in January, where Gideon was betrayed. This was an $8,500 or 8,500 word post, 8,500 words, an hour and 40 minutes. So long, you sons of bitches. But he claims that he was betrayed by people who've known him for decades, and they were sent after him by the cabal to give him hopium. So they have claimed that they're obfuscated. They love that word. They also love the phrase "and so on." I've
Mm.
noticed it so much. But
Also, the word nuanced. I love how people will pepper the word nuanced in when they have no idea how to actually segue into something more intelligent to say. Just, oh, the whole it's very nuanced. You understand it.
right, exactly. But he said that these people, like they're decades old friends, but the cabal, they're not going to come after me, even though they know my real identity, and I'm definitely planning to sabotage them in this system after the Great Reset. And they definitely can't trace the whistleblowers who changed his real identity to Sovereign, and they definitely can't trace all the Sovereign team members. Gideon has laid out breadcrumbs that if this was a real system and this all-powerful cabal absolutely or actually existed, these whistleblowers would have been caught and murdered 100 times.
It'd have been like that scene you see where they're like, "Ladies and gentlemen, we got him," and then boom, the door blows open, and in come the guy with the blast shields, and they come storming into a house, guns
Yep.
ablazing. Like it would have been like that already.
They just think that we're not going to be tempted, or they think we're going to be tempted by being sovereign and all the benefits that it holds. And we're not actually going to do that. We definitely promise to definitely sabotage on the other side. But the cabal doesn't believe that we're definitely going to do that. So this all powerful evil cabal that is planning to literally murder you and separate your soul from God in the astral realm at the behest of Satan would not kill you because you claim to be a saboteur, just in fucking case.
Oh my gosh, it seems that would be more impetus to kill the person.
Yeah, like they're murdering billions of people for their plans to come online, but we're totally safe, guys.
Yeah, all we have to fear is the murder of our souls in the astral realm. Okay, so last, I guess, sort of avenue I want to run down here is they were talking about CERN changing the Bible. And you mentioned early on about how they were sort of shaping their approach to how they were roping in the suckers as they were, and it was like, "Oh, okay, we did it this way for a little while here," and they were kind of trying to find their target audience. And first it was like, okay, we got to find the people that hate anything mainstream media. Okay, now let's just go for truth seekers in general, people that probably like the preppers,
Tried to get
probably.
some sovereign citizens for a little while too.
Yeah, let's get the people that probably wear tinfoil hats to bed. Okay, now we can start zeroing in on those on the right, Christians for sure, Republican-esque, red-blooded Americans.
Mhm.
And when did they start going in on this idea that the Bible's been altered and they know what the Bible actually says, and somehow now tying that into the scam? Like, what is that all about?
So I'm not sure exactly when that started. Hang on. So I actually have a post up. It was Intel drop number 20. I think the video on that one's coming out in the end of December. So I've been doing these videos twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but just to get them the hell over with, I'm doing them 4 times a week now. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So they actually linked to the video that we're going to cover on my stream tomorrow. Specifically, they linked to that, but they said that the cabal is trying to use CERN to erase Jesus from history. And they already have used it to change the Bible. And that's going after the Mandela effect. Conspiracy theorists. Now, understand, the Mandela effect is a psychological phenomenon. The Mandela effect is people think that that Nelson Mandela died in prison before he was the president of South Africa. But now that has evolved from we have terrible memories to the government is using CERN to change the name of peanut butter. And like it's that absurd. And then that's the target audience right there. But also CERN ties into a lot because there were people who genuinely believed that it would open black holes or open portals to hell. And that's not a new thing. People have been like, a lot of the psycho churches have been saying that since CERN was created.
That's okay. That crap drives me nuts because it takes an otherwise intelligent person and makes them look very, very silly when suddenly they're sitting here online going, okay, I'm listening to Frank Sinatra singing I'll Be Home for Christmas, and I know the song is You Can Count on Me, but he says, You Can Plan on Me. Okay, well, if you want to get down to who sung it first, Bing Crosby, and you look at his lyrics, he says, You Can Count on Me. Frank
No,
Sinatra was
Frank
giving
Sinatra's radio version was the one that had you can
Plan
count
on
on me.
Me.
No, his was count. All the other version, Burl Ives,
There,
Bob Hope,
there's
Bing Crosby, those
there
were
is a
all
live
planned.
there is a live one of Frank Sinatra singing Plan on Me. But Frank Sinatra inside a number of his songs, because I've gone down the rabbit hole listening to him on YouTube, you'll listen to like Come Fly With Me,
Mhm.
and sometimes he ends it up with Back Up, Let's Fly really hard. Sometimes he just ends it with Let's Fly Away. He
Yeah.
always was given to changing the words in his songs. Same thing with Johnny Cash. I've heard A Boy Named Sue multiple times,
Mhm.
especially the difference in the live versions where one day he says, Dad, if I have a boy, I'm going to name him after you. Another one, he says, Bill or George, any damn name but Sue. I still hate that name. So people get all whipped up in this frenzy. Like, okay, well, let's go back to the original. Yeah, you look at the original lyrics. Yeah, it says count on me, but here is one where we hear plan. Okay, well, now go find the one where he doesn't say plan. But you're right. I do think that is more of a mental phenomenon. Like people
Mhm.
were up in arms about, oh wait, does Luke say you killed my father? And then Vader says, Luke, I am your father, or no, I am your father. What difference does it make? He
Right.
drops the bomb on him there that, hey, sweet old dad just chopped your arm off. Get ready to go down the garbage chute and hang on for dear life while the Falcon comes to get you. Like, what
Yeah.
does it matter? Are you gonna lose sleep over it now?
The funniest thing is like they use it like the Berenstain universe and the Berenstein like the Berenstain
Yes,
Bears, the Berenstein
yes.
Bears, or Jiffy peanut. No, there was never Jiffy peanut butter. Yes, you have bad memory. No, the government
Jif.
is not aiming CERN at your peanut butter jar to change its name, you moron.
It was Jif and Skippy peanut butter, not
Yes.
Jiffy peanut butter. Jiffy was probably one that was included inside some sitcom because they didn't want to use a brand that they were going to have to actually pay to use the name of. So, like, hey, can you hand me the Jiffy peanut butter? And it was probably just a label printed for that day. Like, I remember working on the set of the Playboy Club in Chicago, and we had Marlboro Reds without the Surgeon General's warning on them because it was supposed to be in the 60s. Like, people can get this stuff made up.
Yeah. But also like Jif was the peanut butter, but we know Jiffy as a slang term, and it's been around for hundreds of years. So it's easy for our brains to make those weird connections.
Yep.
The big one that we're going to talk about tomorrow, so we're going to save it for the most part, but is
Yes.
they're claiming that, for example, like the Lord's Prayer has been changed specifically in the King James version of the Bible. And that the King James version used to say you don't put old wine in old wineskins, but now it says you don't put old wine in old wine bottles. Fun fact, it does say wine bottles in King James. In New King James, NIV, you know, the stuff that we all grew up with, it does
Mhm.
say wineskins because the original King James didn't have access to quite as many manuscripts. And wineskins were not as common practice when the King James Bible was being translated. Bottles would have been a better analogy because translations, you kind of have to understand the culture in which they were translated too. Now we have history and like knowledge of things. So the more recent translations that are a little bit more accurate are going to
Mhm.
say things like wineskin because that's actually what they had in the Bible
Yeah. Now
or
you
in
have
the
the
biblical
ability
times.
to hop on Blue Letter Bible and literally go word by word and get to the Hebrew and the Greek of everything. You can
Mm-hmm.
roll through all of Strong's concordance. You can go ahead and get yourself an NASB exhaustive concordance. Like we can get down to the letter, as Jesus says, the yacht and the tittle. Um,
And
but
we're going to
okay,
make
so
so much freaking fun of that tomorrow.
oh, it's gonna be rife with hilarity. But okay, so last, sort of 10 minutes we got here. So they present this. Now, what was their angle in using it for the scam? In order to get people to send them money? Was it like, hey, we'll send you the real Bible here, just pay 99.99.99 for the
No,
next couple of
that's
months?
basically just manipulating the victims at that point. That's where they get into the cult behavior more than the scam behavior. Basically, be
Okay.
afraid, and you're seeing all this other stuff over here from these other truth seekers, but we're telling the real truth. So we have to take some elements of these other insane things of nonsense and incorporate them into our scam, because it's all about getting people afraid, getting them to listen to the sales pitch. The sales pitch is always, we're going to make you sovereign. You just have to send us all of your life savings. So anything that they can use to get someone's attention, it's advertising, it's marketing. It's like when you just put an ad up on Twitter or X. When you say subscribe to my YouTube channel, like that kind of thing. So it's that level of insanity, but that's really the purpose behind it. Everything that is not saying you need to be made sovereign is leading up to the sales pitch. That's getting you in the door. That's getting you to listen to the pitch.
Sure.
And then saying you need to be made sovereign. That's where they start to make the sales pitch. And every single post, and I see it more and more, the more I dig into them, they always get to this point where they have their intel drop, and then they go back and basically recap everything that they've covered for the previous 6 to 8 months. And then they talk about, well, for new readers, what's going to happen? And are we still sure that this reset's going to happen? Well, yes. And if you're not made sovereign, then there is no hope for you, and you're not going to be able to, like, they cover everything over and over again. It's basic, simple repetition.
It's just water torture. Just boom, boom.
Yeah.
Boom,
because
boom,
the goal is, you must listen, you must be afraid, and you must understand that there is no hope at all. Sure, God's going to win the battle, but there's no hope for you unless Gideon begs his whistleblowers to make you sovereign. And all you have to do is not be a filthy poor. Right? Like their most recent thing was institutional accounts, where they basically...
what is that?
So basically, you are a sovereign, but you're also a sovereign owning a business, because capitalism is going to go away unless you're a sovereign for some reason. But only sovereigns can buy and sell things, and only sovereigns can have unlimited money. So all of the peasants who are not going to be able to buy and sell things, they're not going to be able to generate any wealth. So what's the point of wealth at all? Like, it doesn't make it. There's so many holes in their story. But the institutional thing is basically, my theory is they had a bunch of people reaching out and saying, well, I want to help, but I don't have enough money to become sovereign, or I don't want to become sovereign. So basically, they had a bunch of people filling up their inbox who were not going to send them any money. And they're like, we don't want to deal with people who aren't going to give us money. So now we're going to raise the bar, and you can only apply if you're going to be an institutional investor. And that means a minimum first inflow of $5,000 US. But it's really recommended that your first inflow be $25,000 US.
Gosh, and how many people have they nailed with that?
I don't know. I don't know if they got any, to be perfectly honest. I've only spoken to one victim, because everybody else is keeping their mouth shut. Well, no, I spoke to a second victim who sent like $500 to their rescue plan thing. And they were pissed about it. And they're like, thanks for sending this to me. I guess I'm out the $500, but it could have been a whole lot worse. I'm like, yeah, because they could have had your information if you'd been made sovereign. Like, they have your real name, your date of birth, the place you were born, all the things that make it very easy to apply for a credit card, especially because if they know what city you were born in, what day you were born on, and they know what hospital you were born in, they can actually deduce your social security number.
Okay, so now, what were they doing with the money when they got it? There was talk of casinos.
Yeah. So what I was able to trace was there were two places the money went from the sovereign that sent me their wallets. First was a crypto exchange called Change Now. It's basically the same as Binance. Right. The second place was a website called CSGO 500. And what that is a European-based crypto casino where it's just slot machines on the internet, but you play them with Bitcoin or XRP or Ethereum. So that's literally all it is. But because you have wallets and transactions, it's very easy to launder money through a casino. It is not, however, CSRQ. So, and Michael actually tolerated me responding to him with some snark on Twitter for a while, like a long while, until he said, we have a major intel drop coming this week. And I think that was in April of this year. And I said, oh, are you finally going to explain what CSGO 500 is? And he blocked the hell out of me super fast at that point.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the other reasons they left me alone, because oh, shit, he knows.
Wow.
And there's
That's
so much more. Like I've gone on for hours about it.
yeah, literal hours. I mean, you get the video ground eaten up to prove it.
Mhm.
Um, so just to sort of recap here a little bit, folks, this whole thing that we're getting into tonight is covering it's covering scammers right now that it seems like their bent is they're trying to use the good book in a sense to establish this kind of common ground that hey, we have an understanding here, you're our people, we're your people, and then get you to donate a whole bunch of money to a bunch of
Oh,
jackwagons
you're not donating.
who
No, you're not donating the money. It's your money. They're just holding it
yes,
for you.
yes, yeah, yeah. You can come get it once you can find them wherever they are overseas in some worm-ridden den full of filth with 6 computers and a server that they can process all this with. Um, don't be taken for a ride, folks. Okay, as I already mentioned before, Act 1711 applies every single time. It applies to my videos, applies to everything in life. Okay, approach things with a healthy sense of scrutiny, a healthy sense of skepticism, and do your own research. Okay, you have to. People they'll go online and sit and read Amazon review after Amazon review after Amazon review before they buy that little swing that they're gonna rock their newborn in, that plays the rain sounds and also has a vibrate feature too to help jostle them to sleep. They'll read all the reviews in the world. They won't crack their good book for more than a chapter every few months or so. Or again, that clutch of verses that they get from the pulpit on a Sunday morning. And then I guess they're re-upped for the week and they get to go out and live however they please until that well runs dry and they're back in that pew on Sunday again, enjoying their 2 fast songs, their 1 slow song, and their Eucharist. Um, do your due diligence, folks. Stay read up. Approach everything with your eyes open. And if it does sound too good to be true, um, good chance that it is. Look
Mhm.
at the track record of things that people like this have said. These scammers that make all these predictions, that each one has successively failed. Okay, there's no quantum computer that altered time. There's no looking glass that changed the timeline, and now we're on a different world line. So that's why the prediction failed. There's nobody doing that. All right, CERN has not smashed atoms that has gone back and changed the fact that the war ended with 2 gigantic atomic bombs being dropped in Japan. No, it hasn't done anything like that. Okay, we're living in the present. We're living in the now. Do your own digging. Approach life with your eyes wide open, and don't be taken for this crap. Okay,
And
don't be
keep in mind,
taken for a
the
ride.
scammers are very likely to hear what Eric just described, which is a little bit different than what they have claimed. And if they were to hear this, hear that, they will say, see, these people are gatekeepers because we never claimed any of those things, which proves we're actually completely correct.
Yeah, or they'll sit there and go, you know what, dude, that would have been a really good idea. We'll work that into the next one.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just if it feels like a scam, there's a good chance it is. If they're using fear to motivate you
yes, and
and a sense of
immediacy.
urgent, yeah, fear and immediacy, like combining those things, that is a huge red flag. If and like when I was first studying it, I was afraid. I was like, what if these guys are right? And then I just every time I'd look into it, it got worse. And it's tough to read everything that they've said because it's so long. And I think they do that on purpose. Thousands of words, very long information overload in a format that is deliberately, in my opinion, deliberately difficult to read, so that you just skim it for the fear and then
Yes.
move on. And
Well,
you
it's
don't dig into the
why
details.
it's why so many news websites have these gargantuan length titles for the article you're going to read so that people don't even bother reading the article. They
Mhm.
just see some inflammatory thing up top and go, oh, well, it told me all I need to know right there. Forget who it's talking about here and forget who he's talking to and where the place was. All I need is that information. Now I can go ahead and retweet this and I can rage about it all day with zero actual understanding of what it is I have shared.
Mhm. Well, and that's completely ignoring the innumerable amounts of articles that literally contradict the headline in the first paragraph. So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I mean, these guys, like, it's absolutely insane. Is why I had to dive back in because I walked away and I'm like, no, I have to finish this. I have to go through it all because I skimmed it the first time through most of it. I skimmed their updates, and part of that was because a lot of the stuff that they say would get me banned on YouTube, or I would have to spend 3 times as much time just saying I don't agree with this. Don't ban me, YouTube. So I'm doing it on Rumble. I'm reading their words and I'm doing it. It's taking a long time. I was cutting their intel drops in half. I'm not doing that anymore. So some of the videos are an hour, hour and a half long, but it has to be done because the information has to get out there. And eventually they're going to claim the cabal destroyed them and all of their information is gone. It's not.
Right. And
it's
we
on
lost all
archive.today.
our money. We lost all your money.
Oh, but they're going to claim like all our websites are gone and we've been completely erased. It will as long as archive.today exists, it will be on archive.today. If you want to read their posts for yourself, you can do it on their Just Paste It page. You can watch my videos going through everything. Everything that they have so far will be up by the middle of January on my Rumble page. And if you want to read it, I will send you the links. Reach out to me on Telegram, on Twitter, in my comments section. I will paste the links to the archives of the page. You can see all the different archives that are there. And the beauty of archive.today is you can actually go to the original URL to see if anything has been changed. So like I'm happy to provide all of the evidence that I'm reading. I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. I'm saying their words and then showing you how it's wrong.
Excellent. Well, with that, ladies and gents, I want to thank you again for joining the stream tonight. It's been 3 months since I've been up and running, but we were on with Arthur Nix. You can find him on the X at the Arthur Nix. Hop on over to his YouTube channel as well. Subscribe, observe, watch. Pop on over to the Rumbles channel that he's got as well. You'll find his link tree inside the description box below this video here. Going to be on with Arthur tomorrow evening. Going to be talking about CERN and this supposed change that's been taking place inside the Word of God. What that means for you and your spiritual future. God willing, we won't have to fight for our very existence in the astral plane at the behest of nanomachines that have ripped our soul from this outer husk that we puppet.
There will be much drinking tomorrow.
it's going to be a good night, folks. So what time are we going to be doing that tomorrow, Arthur?
Same time, 10 p.m. Eastern. So same bat
Eastern.
time, different bat channel.
There we go. And I'm guessing that'll be announced on X. So pop on there, find the link, dog bird it out, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Till then, smash those like and subscribe buttons, hit the notification bell. I've got new videos myself coming up here in short order. We are back on the trail of the Nephilim. So I've got the EMIM going to be doling out their exploits for you, hopefully by the end of this week here. And then a few longer form topics. Going to be doing some deep dives. Going to be really taking to task some of the false theology that is out there right now, and some of those things that have really served to divide more than unite within the church. But you guys have a great night. Thank you again to Arthur for joining the stream, and we will see you guys next time. Always.